right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's session, and very happy to be here with all of you guys and the people from the next level. This is the third episode, right? The third episode of the series on property in Singapore, and in particular, we're going to cap off today's session by talking about perhaps one of the most requested topic is, hey Pete, can you share the most profitable resale condominium in Singapore. All right. And today is a really special day because right after this live stream, I'm probably too excited to sleep, okay? Because we're going to have Jerome Powell talking about the Federal Reserve rate decision, right? Probably a rate cut, but the question is, you never know how much it's going to cut, right? Is it going to cut by 50 basis point, 25 basis point, and it is going to have a direct impact, right, on property as well, because it impacts mortgage rates and how much people are going to pay for houses. So tonight, I think the session is can't be more timely than this, right? So I want to talk about the three most profitable condominium. Okay, so let's bring up the slides over here. And right in Singapore, okay, I want to share with you guys what do I see in the market and why do I think these are some areas that you should look at and consider. Okay, all right. So along the way, if you have any questions, if you guys have questions about your current property, or in fact any properties that you're eyeing, right, feel free to ask me in the chat. I'm more than happy to help you guys. Okay, but I do know I have limited time here with you guys, so I want to give you guys maximum value as much as I can. Okay, now just a quick disclaimer before I begin, right? Nothing that I say here should be seen as investment advice, but what I want to do here is to share with you guys how I look at property as from a investment angle as a portfolio manager, right? So for myself, I've started my property journey with just one condominium, and today across the board, we own a couple condominiums, some industrial properties as well, right? And overseas property as well. So collectively, I think we have about 8 properties, me and my wife together, right? So I want to share with you guys how I've done it, right? And I'm speaking this from experience, so I want to share with you guys through education as well. Okay, so please make sure do your own due diligence when you are looking at property. But tonight, I want to share with you some ideas that you can consider. Okay. All right. Now, since I have limited time, there's so much to share. What I want to share with you guys also is that right after this episode, right, which is the third episode of this series, okay, is that the next level guys and I are going to do a longer session, okay? So this is called the property accelerator, right, where we're going to dive deeper into looking at properties. I'm going to share into greater details. Tonight, I'm going to share some of that, right, but in this 3 hours, right, so there are 2 dates. First is on the 21st of September, and the other is on the 3rd of October. So during these 2 days, right, you can choose one of them, right? You don't have to attend both. Just choose either one. One is on a weekend, one is on a Friday, right? Because we want to make sure that as many of you are able to get the knowledge of finding that suitable property for you, the one that can help you to grow your wealth. Okay. So right now, what you can do is you can I think my picture is blocking the QR code. So maybe can you shift my picture to the top, okay? Okay, all right. And you can go to the link over here. Yes, okay, over here, right? So you can scan this QR code, then you can go to the link and you are able to sign up for the dates. Okay, so you can sign up for either 21st or 3rd. It is from 7 to 10. Okay, so this is going to be an extended session, all right? Extended session for those of you who are interested in making property part of your investment portfolio. All right, okay. So let me just maybe copy the link so that we can also share it in the chat later on. Okay, all right. Okay. I'm not sure how I can send the link. Okay, but later on, maybe the backend team can help me just send this link to the chat so that people can access this. Okay. Now, fantastic. Thank you so much. All right. So let's go to tonight's topic. Right. So the thing about looking at property, okay, profitable condominiums, is that there are many different definitions. Some people are looking at it as, is it the last 10 years? Is it the last 5 years? Are we looking at percentage gains, or are we looking at absolute gains, right? So what I did was that I decided to filter it down using my own analysis factor, and I call this the GEMS factor, right? So it's kind of similar to buying a property. A lot of times, because especially in Singapore, due to the additional tax, right? You are not, sorry, stamp duty. You are not able to buy multiple residential property. Okay, so what you need to do is really find the gem in the mix. Okay, so over here I put down the acronym GEMS, right? So G stands for growth potential of the area, right? It's a lot more than just two words. Of course, there are many different factors, but I'll just give you the broad topic first. Okay, E stands for entry price and what's the value of the place. And M stands for something that is quite important, right? And that is what is the mass appeal about the area, right? What is the market treasuring about that location? Is it that is very convenient, or there are some unique factor about this property? Okay. And last but not least is that every property eventually you will have to come to this decision called the exit strategy. Okay. Now, this is very crucial because I always say to my clients, who I do a one-on-one with, when they make six figures, right? They always say, "Hey Pete, how come you're so confident about this 4 years ago, right? Now they sell the property, they make six figure, 100,000, 200,000, right? And they say, Pete, how come you're so confident?" And I say, the thing is this, right? The profit are made not when you sell the property. The profits are already decided when you buy the place. Okay, so it's very important to look at the selling of the property, right? The potential of selling, what are the factors that will affect the selling, right? Basically, the exit strategy right from the get-go, even before you purchase the property. Okay, all right. So later, if we have time, I can go through in greater details. But what I did was that I decided to filter the very profitable condo based on these four factors to find out which are the ones that fit this model. Okay? All right. So you guys, are you all ready? So tonight I will share with you all three areas of condos that has done really, really well. And they actually fit into this model quite nicely and in different forms, right? So you have a variety. And one thing for you all to learn is also that, sometimes people say there is always, MRT must be a very important factor. So later on, we'll see. Is it always true, right? Can we make a profit and find the diamond in the rough, so to speak, right? To find the gem where maybe perhaps is going against the conventional thinking. Okay. And most of the time, going against conventional thinking is where you truly can reap the best profit. Okay. So the first area that I want to share with you guys is this. Okay. So let me bring up my slides over here. All right. The first area, it is none other than Serangoon North. Okay. All right. So maybe let's just make the screen a bit bigger so that the map can be seen clearer from their perspective. Yeah, thank you so much. Okay. So this is the Serangoon area, right? So Serangoon North area. I don't know if you guys are familiar. Let me just give you guys a quick orientation over here. So down south here is Serangoon Gardens. Okay. And this is perhaps one of the more popular schools in Singapore, and that is Rosyth Primary. Okay, Rosyth Primary. And this over here, okay, is going to be the future MRT station at Serangoon North, right? So this is going to be part of what we call the Cross Island Line, right? And one of the projects that I want to share with you guys is this place called 100 Palms Residences. Okay, so this is an executive condominium that just came to MOP, right? So back then when this was first built, right? Okay, honestly, when it was first built, the MRT wasn't announced yet. Okay, it wasn't announced yet. The only thing that was going very well for 100 Palms is that it is so close to Rosyth. So initially there wasn't any MRT, but let's see how it does, right? So right now there are 88 transactions done, and you can see out of the 88, they are all profitable. None of them are unprofitable. In fact, the profitability in this area is very, very strong. Okay, so if you look across the board, the three bidders, most of them made almost $1 million. Okay, in fact, one of them did a 5 bidder. This person made 1.5 million in a matter of how many years? 8 years, right? 8 years make 1.5 million, annualized gain of 10%. Okay, so what does this tells us, right? What does this tells us is that a lot of time there's this one factor that I just now mentioned, right, which is something G. Okay, and that is the growth potential. All right. So the growth potential is, okay, does this area have any factor of growth? Right? Can things improve? Can the location get better? Right? And definitely this is one of the main reasons, the MRT station over here. Okay. And another reason why 100 Pumps did very well is also because at down south, okay, so maybe it's not very clear here, there's two giant condominium known as the Garden Residences and Affinity and Serangoon. Okay. And when they were launched, they were also selling for very, very high price, slightly high, I would say very high, slightly high price, which made 100 Pumps even more attractive. Okay. But the thing is this, I'm not looking at just 100 Pumps because EC, when you first bought it, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, there's a good chance that you're going to make a profit because EC is already subsidized. But can you see one more thing is that this area is not an area that is filled with condominiums. Okay. So one other factor in the whole model, okay, right? One other factor in the whole model is actually the supply and demand of the area. And in particular, we're looking at supply over here. You can see that there's not a lot of supply, right? So actually, what I want to show you guys is this condo over here, right? Terraces, okay? Now, Terraces is a much older condo, okay? Much older condo. But I want to show you in terms of transaction-wise, okay? 197 profitable sales thus far. And most recently, okay, so take a look over here. Most recently, projects that were just recently sold in 2025, these were bought, right? Just about, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, right? They were also making about 8 to 7% annualized gain. Okay? 8 to 7% annualized gain. So over here, one thing I want to share with you guys is that don't just always look at the absolute level, because just now when you look at 100 Pumps, right, when we see millions of profits, it does look very, very high, but that is because they bought it in 2017 and they held it to 2025. Okay? But if you were to buy it more recently in 2022, 2021, actually a better choice will be Terraces, because you will have gained close to a EC level profitability using an older resale project. Okay, I say this again. Many a times people always say, oh, resale cannot out-earn new projects. It's not true, right? We are getting almost similar, okay, so maybe it's true, but we are getting very similar returns in this case. Okay, so you can see 8-9% annualized gain, right? So this is indeed one of the most profitable area in Singapore, in my opinion, after I filter it. Okay, right? So this location is really solid, and you can see generally there's another trend is that the bigger size you buy, right? So for example, the 4-bedder, the 3-bedder, right, generally makes a bit more profit than the smaller size unit. Okay, so once again, for those of you who are looking at buying condominiums, if your budget allows, right, do consider buying a bigger place, because everybody out there is looking to buy a bigger place, right? So once again, that falls under the M, right, the market mass appeal step. Okay, all right. So this is Serangoon North. Now, how about another area? So let's move to another part of Singapore. So Serangoon North is somewhere, in the middle. Let's go to the west. Okay, and this area traditionally has been overlooked, because when you talk to people about the west, what will they say? They will say Jurong, right? Jurong Lake District, or maybe they will even say Clementi area. But how about West Coast? Okay, right? So why West Coast is so interesting right now to me is because there is going to be a new launch that is coming up, right? So over here, right at the canal, okay, right, the Sungai Pandan, there's going to be a new launch called Faber Residences, okay? And to analyze this, what I did for a lot of my one-on-one members is to say, hey, let's just look at the projects across the highway, okay? There's Park Rivera over here, there's Twin View over here, and there's Whistler Grand over here. Let's take a look at these 3 latest projects and see how they did, right? By looking at their past performance, we can have some indication on how well Faber Residences might do. Okay. Now, the first thing that might have caught your eye in the first place is that you look around the map, there is no MRT. Do you realize? Okay. This area is not within walking distance, right? So let me just highlight over here. This right here, this is Clementi Station, right? Just above my head. Okay, right? And if you look over to the left, right, this is the Jurong region line. So the Pandan Reservoir and Jurong Town Hall Station is over here. So if you were to draw distance, okay, right, the walking distance from here to here is easily 15 to 20 minutes. And if you walk from here all the way to Clementi, it's probably going to take you more than 20 minutes, probably half an hour. Okay, right? So it's not near the MRT station. Another thing is this, is that this area also got a lot of bad rep because, oh my gosh, it's very near the highway. Okay, so you can see over here, Park Rivera, Whistler Grand, they are really, facing the highway. So they probably get quite a bit of road noises, and sometimes it maybe even dust as well, dusty from the highway. So the question is, people always say, hey, this place doesn't seem so good, isn't it? Right? It's not near the MRT station. It is, the accessibility is not that great. It's facing the highway. So how would they have done? Okay, so I basically pull up the results of Twinview, Park Rivera, and Whistler Grand, right, over here, this one, right, these three newest project over here, and plotted them on a table. Okay, and you can see over here, the three of them all did really well. Okay, so this is the chart from 2021 January. So that means the last 4 years, 4.5 years. And you can see the lowest growth is 22%. That means the annualized growth is about 5%. Okay, right? The highest growth is 30%. That means the annualized growth is closer to 6-7%. So very, very strong area as well, right? This is not in the center of Singapore like Serangoon North. This is all the way at West Coast, and we are getting from between 5% on the lower mile to up to as high as even closer to 7% on the upper end of it. Interesting, isn't it? Okay, so let's look at profitability over here. You can see that these are some of the transactions over here, right? Profitability is fantastic. They bought in 2021, they sold in 2025, right? So within 4 years, they already flipped already. So a lot of times people ask me, hey, Pete, should I buy an EC or should I buy a resale? And I always say it depends on your time horizon. Yes, the guys who bought an EC, they probably, like for 100 pumps, they make quite a bit of money, but they do have to hold the property for, close to 10 years. Whereas in the resale market, what you can do is you could have, buy a resale, flip it on the 4th year. Now it's 4th year, you can no longer do a 3 years anymore. Now the rule has changed to a minimum seller stamp duty of 4 years, right? You could have done it 2 cycles, okay? Right? So it really depends. And another thing is this, when you go for absolutely new ECs, I think 100 Pumps was one of the very last few that is in such a prime location, right? Many of them right now are all the way in the outskirts, all the way in Tengah area, or even in the north, or even in the eastern part of Singapore. So you won't get good locations anymore, right? Whereas if you buy resale, you have the chance, you have the option to say, hey, I like this project, I love where it is right now, I can actually buy a resale unit. Okay, right? So you can see profitability here is very strong, and you don't have to wait for 7-8 years. Okay, right? So what is the lesson learned here? Okay, the lesson learned here is very simple. Yes, accessibility, the MRT station is something, but it is not everything. It is not everything. Okay, right? And one more thing is you can see that, hey, these 2 units are facing the highway. Why do they still do so well, isn't it? Okay. Then, and one thing is that it is also in this picture, okay, and it is right over here, okay. So one of the main reasons why the West Coast area, despite the lack of accessibility to MRT station, is doing very well is because actually all these projects, including the new launch over here, right? So collectively, including the new launch over here, they all fall under the 1 kilometer to this school called Nanhua Primary. Okay, how many of y'all know what is Nanhua Primary? Okay, right? For those of you who are parents, for myself, I have a primary 2 kid, right? So I know which are the popular schools, and Nanhua is definitely one of them, right? So that gives a lot of people the reason to buy this area. Okay, so when we are looking at property, I would say when we look at the factor of GEMS, GEM, right? We want to not just look at, for example, growth. We also want to look at, for example, in this case, the market appeal, right? What is the appeal to the market? And having a primary school within 1 kilometer is a very big appeal. Okay, all right. How many of y'all actually live in the West Coast? Okay, how many of y'all live in the West Coast? Type West Coast in the chat. Okay, and I think the people who are living in West Coast will be very happy to see that this is the results, right, of the condos over here. Now, The thing is, you would also notice there are some new condos that is very near the school, right? Why do we have to buy something so far away? Okay, so let's take a look at the condos that is very near the school. For example, the one next to it is TriLink. Okay, so this condominium is known as TriLink, and immediately I want to just pay attention to the annualized gains, right? Is that it's like 5%, maybe on average I would say it's about 5 to 6%. Okay, 5 to 6%. And let's go back to West Coast, right? And let's see. Actually, very, very similar returns, isn't it? Right? Very, very similar returns. In fact, sometimes you might even argue some of them are doing better, right? For example, the four-bedder here, right? Four-bedders here are making about $500,000 minimum. Okay, $500,000 minimum. And if you look at TriLink over here, okay, there's no four-bedder to look at, but nothing comes close to $500,000. Okay, nothing come close to $500,000. So what does this tell you, right? So in fact, when I pack the two side by side, you can see that these two pretty much perform similarly, or in fact, TwinView would have outperformed TriLink in the recent few years. Okay, so what's going on here, right? Why is the condominium nearer to the school not performing as well? Okay, and the reason is very simple, right? Is the entry price. Okay, you can see that TriLink, when it first started, the entry price was significantly higher, and therefore, right, it took a while for a lot of the owners to reach profitability. Okay, so once again, it is not just about buying very near the school is always the primary reason. Buying near MRT is the only thing. It's something, but it's not everything. Another thing to really take note of and pay attention, and that's what I do always with my one-on-one members, is that no matter how good a property we see, right, I will always share with them, okay, what are the surrounding prices? What are the comparable prices? Let's do a comparison, right? And make sure that they are getting it at a suitable price. Now, I use the word suitable here is because a lot of time people always say, oh, I want to buy under value. I want to pay the cheapest price, right? But just remember, the sellers are also probably asking the similar thing. I want the best value and I want to get the best price I can, right? So it's about getting the suitable price where you are not overpaying for it. Okay, price does very much matters here. So why did the poorer location, quote unquote, poorer location did better? Is because the entry price was much better. So much so that it outdo the location. Okay, and in property, it is very easy for people to overpay, right? In the matter of like 50K, or even sometimes I do see like six-figure overpaying, right? Over purchasing value of like 100K to 200K. Right? So therefore, in property, many a times when you make a decision, that one decision, if you were to make it a wrong one, it will easily cost you, 50 to 100K or even more, right? And that's why when I sit down with my one-on-one members, I always talk them through, make sure that they understand, okay, what are the comparison price, what is a suitable price, and of course, if we can get it, what is an undervalued price, okay? Because just by doing this, it will easily save you six-figure. And remember what I said earlier on, is that the profit is made not when you're selling, but is determined at the purchase, right? And this is part of it. Okay? All right. Okay, so meantime, take a quick pause. Any of you have any questions, right, about the property going forward, do type in the chat. One thing I want to highlight, okay, let me just drink some water first. One thing that I do want to highlight is that with the Federal Reserve cutting rates, okay, very likely they are going to cut rates. I do think the property market here is going to get kickstarted, and it coincides very nicely because right now in Singapore, right, we are having the Hungry Ghost Festival, right? For the Chinese, this is the not so auspicious period, okay? So therefore, the property market is a bit more quiet, and right now what we're going to see is Federal Reserve potentially cutting rates, making the mortgage rates going down even further, right? So therefore, I think there's a lot of tailwind, right? A lot of boost factor to push property prices from the gate, the right from the gate when let's say the Hungry Ghost Festival is over, when people are back into the market looking for properties, and you will probably see prices shoot up quite fast, right? Because now it's not just, I've not been looking at property for 1 month, I need to get back to it if I want to buy something. But it's also looking at the interest rate and like, interest rate has fallen by another 25 basis points. So I can actually start my purchase now, right? So my prediction for property prices in the next 6 months or so is that it's probably going to rise much faster than what a lot of people expected. Okay, right? So really just take note right now, for all my one-on-one members, I'm basically telling them, let's get ready. Of course, some of them say, Pete, I also don't want to buy during the Ghost Festival, which is fine, right? But what we want to do right now is to be prepared. Okay, the P word, not price, just only price, but to be prepared. When you are prepared, you know what you want to buy. The moment you can start buying, or the moment you know that the Federal Reserve has lowered the rate, okay, you can act the fastest. Right? Okay, so this buying property is usually one of the most important decision, and I want to wish everybody the very best, right? In buying a property, and that's why I do one-on-one for my members, because I want to give them guidance. Because without guidance, it is very easily for people to easily overpay property by 50K, 100K, right? And I would say overpay is not the worst thing. The worst thing is when people buy a wrong property, right? You can only buy one property at one time. If you make a wrong move, that will set you back at least 4 years now because of the seller stamp duty. There's 4 years period. Okay, not just 4 years, but you also lock in your capital there for 4 years, and you might make a loss if you buy a wrong property as well. Okay, so there are many things to consider when you're buying property. So making sure that you go in with the proper guidance, the proper research is very important. To me, right, the data is everything. Okay, you can see from this sharing, I've shown you a lot of data, and I truly believe in that. Okay, now the last location. Okay, so let's look at the last location. The last location that I want to share with all of you is now from the west. I'm going to bring you guys to the east. Okay, and in this case, to the northeast region. Okay, this is the Punggol area. Okay, so let me just introduce Punggol very quickly to those of you who are not familiar. Right, is that it's a very busy place. Okay, there are many. You can see over here all the purple color stuff. They are all the HDBs. Okay, and those that I circled, or not circled, I boxed it up in the blue. Those are condominiums. Okay, and of course there are more than this. So this area is actually very different from Serangoon North. It is huge supply. A lot of condominiums. Over here, you can actually count already. Okay, there's 1, 2, 3. On top of the shopping mall, there's 1, right? 4, 5, and then there's one more 6 here. Okay, and bottom here, we have Twin Waterfalls and Ecopolitan. So total, there's 8 just in this picture. Okay, did I miss out anything? I think not. Okay, so in just this picture, we already have 8 condominiums. Easily, each one of them will have like 300 to 400 units. That is close to 3,000 units of condominiums already. Okay, so you might think that, hey, Pete, this location, wow, is so oversupply, and some of the condos are really not that near the MRT station, right? For example, Piermont Grand, if you want to go to Punggol, MRT is quite a distance. Same for the guys at Twin Waterfalls, right? Okay, although they do have an LRT line, the light rail to bring them around, but it's still a distance. Okay. However, when you look at the profitability, here it is. Right? You can see that it's also in the region of like 30+%. And this round, I even make it even harder for Punggol. I started it in 2022. So they actually have less time. They achieve the same results as West Coast with 1 year less. That's how much growth this area is. And mind you, for those of you who don't know where Punggol is, if I were to draw Singapore as a triangle, as a diamond shape, okay, so this is Singapore in the essence, okay, right? Punggol is all the way at the northeast, the last station of our northeast line. The last station, so it is not near the center of Singapore at all. It is perhaps the furthest you can go without going to the sea. Okay, so why are we seeing such strong results? Okay, in fact, if you look at the profitability over here, the annualized gain is insane. Now, this project that I'm showing you, it is not a new project. It is a project that is about 10 years or more, right? And it is still getting annualized gain of 8% for some of them. The lowest, the most sorrowful guys still make close to 5%. Some of them even made 9%, right? When they bought it correctly. Okay, and you can see these projects, these units are bought from different timing. 2022 is after COVID, right? 2016, 2017 is before COVID. And they all make money. So it's nothing to do with just the COVID demand, right? It is already highly profitable before the pandemic started. Okay? And the thing is, this area, based on the traditional analysis, right? Those people who analyze property will say this area is probably not going to be that good, right? Why? Because if you look at it, there is no popular school in Punggol, right? I think the closest popular school is actually in Sengkang, right, Nanqiao. So Punggol don't really have a very popular school. Not all the condos are near the MRT station. You do have to take a light rail or even take a bus, right? And the price is not cheap. So what's happening, right? How many of y'all stay in Punggol, right? Type Punggol in the chat. So what's happening here? Why is Punggol doing so well? My friends that are living in Punggol, do you have an idea? Right? Or it so happens that you luckily you bought Punggol for some reasons. Okay. So the thing is this: there are sometimes people who've had their first purchase, they maybe buy the Punggol and they make a lot of money and they say, wow, this property game is so easy. And unfortunately, I do see some cases whereby the second one, because they are not able to duplicate the luck they had in the first property, then by the time they come to me, right, I have to do rectification work. Okay, I have to repair it. So guys, the important thing is when you're looking at property, or in fact any form of investment you're doing, right, don't rely on luck. Luck is very hard to duplicate. It is very hard to strike lottery twice. Okay, but one thing you can do is to be prepared, is to look at the research and say, okay, what is supporting this area in the past growth and what can I learn from it? Right? That's the most important thing. I have just less than 1 hour here. One thing I want to impress on most of you or all of you is that it is not about just buying the correct property. It is how do you arrive at that decision in the first place, right? Do you know what to look out for? What are the things to see? What are the things to look past? For example, in this case for Punggol, 3 no factors that's not good for them. But why is this still a great place to be, right? Why was I sharing with people back in 2018, 2017? Hey, bro, Punggol is up and coming, is doing well. And a lot of people say, but Punggol, there's nothing there, right? It's such a new area back then, okay? And the reason is very simple, okay? And just now, remember, we had the factor of GE, okay? Right? GEMS. Okay, so in this case, I want to talk about the G again. Now, one of the G is not just what's the developmental growth. Okay, it is also the population growth. Right? Do you know that Punggol is actually one of the most rapidly growing estate? Okay, so over here, this is from derived from Singapore stats. You can see that the residents in Punggol over the last 20 years has increased from 15,000 resident unit, that means 15,000 families, to last year, 2024, it was closer to 70,000 units. This is multiplied by how many times? 5 times? Right? Close to 5 times. So it has almost 5x. And that is the main reason that it has been driving the growth in Punggol, right? Because when there's more demand, right, then the prices go up. So even though there is a lot of condo supply over here, right? In total, there's 8 of them, but you can see all the purple color stuff, okay? These are all HDBs. And if they like the area, they say, oh, I love Punggol a lot, I want to stay back in Punggol, they will have to choose one of the 8, right? And the ratio of HDB here to Punggol is very healthy, okay? So this is the main reason why. So once again, the one key thing to remember is that there is no one size fit all formula for property investing, right? Everybody is different, right? The thing about the GEMS factor is that it factor into the investment value, right? But one thing that a lot of my clients that I also analyze for them is, hey, how do we balance your own needs, right? Your own personal needs. For example, I want to stay near to my parents, I want to stay near to my children's school, or I want to stay near to my workplace, right? Can I find a gem, right? Or gems while balancing this factor, because maybe they don't want to sacrifice staying near to their parents, right? So these are the important factors to look at. Okay, so once again, to recap, for me, after consulting more than 200 clients, right, have seen so many of them make good profits. What is that winning formula here is what I call as the GEMS factor, right? So number one, we look for growth potential, not just in development, right, in terms of URA development, but also population growth, okay? The second one is entry price. As you can see from the West Coast example, it is not always the best location win. If the price is attractive enough, even if the location is not ideal, it can be a very good investment. Okay. And number 3, the M, right? M stands for the market or the mass appeal. You want to look out for an area whereby there is a factor for people to say, hey, I like it a lot. This place is very good. For example, schools, 1 km to primary schools. Okay. And last but not least, the sellability. What is your exit strategy? Who do you sell the place to? Right? How do you sell it? What is the unique selling point of this property? Is it going to be easy to sell? Or is it going to be a tough sale? Right? So all these will be factored into the full analysis. And that's what I want to do always, right, for my clients, to make sure that, hey, let's find the property that check the most boxes. Okay. Now, is there a property that check all the boxes? Very seldom, very rare, right? So for those of you who are on my one-on-one, then I'll share like what is the 4 out of 4, right? All the boxes checked. But I would say you don't even need to find a property that checks all the boxes, but you need to find a property that suits you, your unique demand, right? Because there's no one size fit all, that check the most boxes, right? To assure your profitability, right? Otherwise, you'll be very confused. You'll be like, oh, now that I bought this property, will I see the profits in 4 years' time, in 5 years' time, right? Will I see the 6-figure gains on a yearly basis, right? So what I want to do here is to remove the uncertainty, to give people that clarity into buying property, to give them certainty so that they can buy with confidence. Okay? Now, I just want to show you some example and also some other areas that I really like, right? For example, in the East, I also really like the area of Tampines. Okay, so this is one of my one-on-one member back then, back in 2021. I told, hey, let's go and look at the East, okay? And they really like this project. This is Treasure at Tampines, okay? And for the 2-bedder, within just a 1 year span, they already made close to $200, $200, 200,000 profits, okay? And today, if you look at the transaction value, right, the gain is closer to 300 plus 400, okay? And another thing is to look at, okay, how do you change the growth trajectory of your property game, right? So this is where I help a couple and I do an analysis for them and I say, hey, you guys are owning a 1-bedroom plus study right now, but actually, if you combine your forces, you can actually look at purchasing a 4-bedder, right? And that's what they did in this case. So it is not always, so I want to emphasize, out there, yes, there are a lot of people talking about sell 1, buy 2, but it is not always the best solution, okay? If you ask me, should I buy two bedders or one bedder, 1 2-bedder versus combining the forces for this couple, right? And these two are very young in their 30s, right? And combine their forces to buy a 4-bedder, I would say yes, right? Because as you can see in my previous example, a lot of 4-bedders are gaining a lot more. Okay, all right. And going beyond just Singapore, this is another couple that I helped back in the 2022, right? This is really one of the most amazing experience that I've ever had. Okay, is whereby they used to own one condominium. Okay, and what we did in the span of 5 months is to share with them the research, and they themselves decided, okay, let's just be very action taker here. Okay, so they themselves transacted 6 times, right? And they increased their portfolio value from 1.9 million to 4.2 million. Okay. So there are a lot of things that they had to do, right? And I guided them along the way. But the long story short is that the whole point of the property game is to increase the asset value. Because at the end of the day, why do we buy property? It's because property is going to increase in a percentage, right? So let's say property over 4 years increase just by 10%, a very modest 10%. Okay. And the question I always ask my clients, my one-on-one member is, do you want 10% of 1.9 million or 4.2 million, right? If we assume the property increase in the same way, do you want 10% of 1.9 or 10% of 4.2? And I think the answer is very clear. You want a 10% of 4.2 instead. Okay. All right. So I can share in details about what I did for them, the exact move and stuff like that, but I wouldn't have time to go through everything today. So once again, for those of you who want to find out more, I'll be sharing all these in greater details during the 2 session, okay, of Property Accelerator. All right. Okay. Got a question here. What is the link to the Property Accelerator? I'll share it later on. Okay. I'll share it later on. All right. And let me bring up the slide over here. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yes. Okay. So I've come to the end of this sharing very quickly. All right, I want to give you guys a very quick value add, right? Which are the 3 areas you can possibly look at. But if you want to dive deeper with me, right, to go into a deeper session in understanding how your property can work for you, okay, right, and to grow your portfolio, just like how I've helped my clients over here, right? We have 2 sessions. One is on the 21st September, which is this Sunday, okay, from 7 to 10. Or if not, you can join us on the 3rd October on the Friday, 7 to 10. Okay, so we're just going to do these 2 runs because, frankly, right now I've quite busy with my existing client on hand, right? So I won't be able to tender too many other clients. But I think I still have some spare capacity for the viewers of next level, right? So that's why we are doing just these 2 runs to assist you guys as much as possible. And I think right now is a very opportune time because of the rates coming down and also the Singapore season of buying property is going to restart very, very soon. Okay, so what's going to happen in this property accelerator is that I'm going to share with you deeper into my gem analysis, which I took it from analyzing stocks, right? And I use it on property and to use this system to help many families, right, to have 6-figure gains, right? In total, about 200 families so far. Okay, so if right now you only have one property, you feel like you're very stuck, or you're not sure what is the next step to take, okay, do come for this session. I think that this session will be able to give you, right, the clarity and the confidence to move forward with your plans over here. Okay, so you can scan the QR code over here, or if not, the team has already put up the link in the chat also. Okay, or if not, you can actually click the link right here. All right. Okay, with that said, I've come to the end of tonight's sharing. I want to make sure it is a very value pack, right? A quick one, right? I don't want to keep it too long. So if you have any questions, I would love to answer your questions right now. Okay. We're just going to go to a Q&A for 5 minutes and also give you guys time to scan the QR code to join this. Okay. Which one is fuller now? Okay. Currently, the 21st September slots is a bit fuller because it's closer. Okay, so if you can't make it for 21st September, I would strongly encourage you to go for 3rd October. Yeah, okay, because the 21st September might be full already. Okay, but just go and register. Okay, if we can slot you in, we will slot you in. You will receive the confirmation email as well. All right, you'll receive the confirmation email. Okay, let me see. All right, okay. Pete, what is the current? Okay, what are your views on current new launches? Okay, so let me just talk about new launches very quickly, right? I think right now new launches, frankly, is on the more expensive side. It's a bit more expensive, okay, and a lot of times people are overpaying for it, right? In fact, another areas that people tends to overpay is actually what I call the en bloc dream property, right? So have you heard of this word called en bloc? All right. So this is actually one of the slides that I wanted to share with you. Okay, is that previously I had a one-on-one member who already put down 1% to buy this project for en bloc. Okay. And he said, wow, Pete, this project, right, got very high chance for en bloc. And why do people like en bloc is because they can actually potentially make a lot of money if the developer buys a unit. Okay. And when I saw that, I said, okay, let me show you the data. I show him the analysis. I even show him the probability of the en bloc happening. And I basically tell him, hey, this project, yes, it does look like a potential en bloc, but it is very unlikely to happen. And these are the various reasons why. Okay. And in fact, I've had clients who stay in this development. They are also telling me the odds of en bloc is very low. Right. So I told them, hey, you might not want to do this. So he said, Pete, thanks for stopping me from buying the unit for en bloc. And what they did in the end is that they bought another development and they just rented it out. And they rented it out for $6,000. Wow. Okay, three bedder rent for $600, not too bad. Okay, and it's true. In fact, until today, I think the en bloc is still haven't approved yet. Okay, so for those of you who are buying for en bloc, please be very mindful. It's not that en bloc is not a game you can play, but you need to look at it very, very carefully. Okay, so this is something that I will also share during the 3-hour sharing, right? The property accelerator. As the name suggests, this 3-hour is meant to be a acceleration to your property knowledge, so that to equip you with the ability to make very confident decision, right, and to invest with clarity, and also give you some resources along the way, right, to help you to invest better. Okay, all right. I think that's 5 minutes of Q&A already. I don't want to hold you guys back any further. Once again, thank you to the people from Next Level for inviting me for this series of 3 episodes. I hope these 3 episodes has been useful to you guys. If you missed the first 2 episodes, just go to the Next Level YouTube page. You can actually find the first 2 episodes. If not, I will look forward to seeing all of you, right, either on the 21st September or the 3rd October at 7 p.m. sharp, when I'll go through the Property Accelerator course to prepare you for the upcoming bull run on the property market. Okay, if not, that's all I have. Thank you everybody for attending this. Thank you for your attention, and I'll see you next time. Bye.